welcome to the Common Bridge. We've got a great guest today. You'll recognize him, actor, writer, playwright, singer, and a really great icon of our times in Jeff Daniels. Jeff, I really appreciate you being here and spending some time. I know you're really busy these days.
I am, but it's happy to do this. Happy to do this.
Great. Today we want to talk about the arts and specifically the performing arts. Um, we've missed them. I've missed them. It's the biggest thing during the pandemic. Besides being apart from family and friends, it just kind of feels like the soul was ripped out of our society. We couldn't go to a play. We couldn't see live music. We couldn't go see a film with other people. Um, and I just thought about how audiences might be reacting to that and the artists themselves. And that came to a screeching halt. And so today on the Common Bridge, our guest, Jeff, knows is unquestionably qualified to talk about this. Now, Jeff, I think you've been in about 80 feature films. I hear your voice doing voiceovers in various places. Um, You've been nominated for a Tony Award on Broadway for Gods of Carnage. You've won an Emmy for your work at Network. And what our audience might not know is that you're also an exceptional playwright. You've authored scripts, you've written musicals, you tour with your guitar and you sing. And by the way, audience, this is an actor that can sing and tell great stories. And he actually has stories about actors that cannot sing, and they're quite entertaining. And most recently, you've won critical acclaim for your performance as Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. And of course, the founder of the renowned Purple Rose Theater in Chelsea, Michigan. So, Jeff, again, welcome. Um, I know our audience knows a lot about you as from the professional side, your public work, but you've also been a great booster for your hometown, and you've gotten involved with other causes, and you're very strong in your personal relationships, long-term friendships, and such. Um, Anything you'd like to share with our audience before we dive into what we're going to talk about today in terms of performing arts?
No, you covered it. It was that was like This Is Your Life with Ralph Edwards.
Yeah.
That was good. That was pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been busy. So you've been working, and that's good.
I
Um,
am working. I am working. And
um,
I think one of the things, back to your earlier comment about the arts and audiences' reaction to not having them, there's also those of us who are in the arts, who have spent our lives in the arts. They pulled the plug. And as my agent said when the pandemic hit, he goes, "Now I know how to get you to stop working, throw a pandemic." And over the year, and it was a year, certainly away from acting, that now that I'm back in it, and we've been shooting this series for Showtime called American Rust. We've been shooting it since March 1st, and this is June, so we're 4 months in, 7 weeks to go. I forgot that I missed it, or I realized that I missed it. And why do I miss it? I could retire. I've had a good run, and and going into the pandemic, I was thinking, boy, I'd love to be finished with this. Go out with Atticus Finch. Ted Williams hits a home runs, gets in the dugout, goes to his car. Do that. But I think the thing that's common between what the audience, I have a feeling, will return to because they miss it, and what the artists will return to because they miss it, is that when you do great art, whether it's a song, a book, a movie, a play, whatever it might be, you're more than you. I've always said, when I become Atticus, when I become Harry Dunn in Dumb and Dumber, when I become Frank Griffin in Godless, I'm more than just me. And I think that's what happens when people get inside a theater, in my case, like with To Kill a Mockingbird, and they shut the doors behind them and they are transported. And it's great art that does that. You can stand, I remember shooting, what was it? No, I was doing some press in Paris and I went to the Louvre. I got to go to the Louvre. I've never been there. Got to say it, got to do it. And I stood in front of the Mona Lisa, which is not big. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
this.
right. Yeah.
It's not, you think it's not. And you just get pulled in. And the smile and the half smile and the look and the eyes and the way that the painting was captured, what it does is it pulls us out, up, into something else, and we experience life more fully. That's what the arts can do. You don't have to do the arts, but I think you're less than you could be if you kind of gave yourself over to art that is well done and takes you beyond your insignificant self, which is what it comes down to. I think the arts gives us significance, understanding, and it's like getting wings.
Well, Jeff, you
It's
enjoy
like people, man, we can't fly, but when you stand in front of great art or you experience great art, yes, you can. It gives you wings.
Indeed, and I understand what you're saying about the Mona Lisa and the David. Clearly, things that leave you speechless, left me speechless. Um, and I think you enjoy a reputation of being really well prepared for your roles. And I've had the pleasure and the occasion to see you perform a number of times. And when you were doing Blackbird, that to me was so extraordinary. Um, I don't want to see it again, by the way,
I know.
because that was very powerful, and I think they're bringing it back with a different cast. Um, but it's that kind of range where when I see you perform, you're into that character, and To Kill a Mockingbird was a great rewrite of this very, very powerful book and play about our time. And it has so much relevance to today and the treatment based on what a person of one color might say versus what a person of another color might be saying. And I think the way that the writers worked it was extraordinary. And you and the cast members deserve all the accolades that you're receiving. Now, you ended your run with To Kill a Mockingbird, true?
Yes, I ended it once. Yes.
Is there something that you can share with us, or it's news to come?
No, it's been announced. It was announced, I believe, last week. So it's new, and it wasn't for sure, but it got done. And there were a bunch of reasons to go back. One, I didn't feel I had to. I had done it for a year, 8 shows a week for a year. I didn't miss a show. I was Cal Ripken Jr., 415 shows, never missed, which is, I mean, there are people who did that. There were two other cast members in To Kill a Mockingbird who also didn't miss. It's a long haul. It's a slog. It's a marathon. And I just wanted to, I had a feeling that might be the last one. And television, premium cable, prestige drama is what they're calling it, is calling me, and they're calling me a lot. And I really enjoy working in front of the camera. So I didn't artistically need to go back. I had done it every way I could think of. Good night. But with the pandemic, with Broadway shutting down, being a part of the reopening, if we can get the show up to what I remember it being, which is a lot of work because you're going to have some of the members of the cast who are from the original production, some who are not, a few that are new. And we only have 4 weeks. So I don't want to put up the show again and have it be creaky, not as good. So that was an issue. I was able to get Celia Keenan Bolger back as Scout. I would not do it without her. She's essential. It's a two-headed monster. To Kill a Mockingbird. It's not just Atticus. And Celia won the Tony Award for it. So I had to have her. So the producers made that happen. Now, it's also what Atticus Finch means today, in today's America, post George Floyd, post all the wokeness. Also, being aware now of white privilege, white blindness. An African-American friend of mine, Thornetta Davis, who we did a song together called I Am America. And Thornetta, I was talking about the Statue of Liberty, and she says, yeah, we only see the back of that.
Oh, boy.
I said, yeah, it's pointed toward Europe, Ireland, England, France, Germany. It's not pointed towards Africa. And we'd been there for 200 years when they erected it, or 100 years. No, 200 years. 200 years as slaves and this. And so I was like, it's just perspective. When you're brought up in a small town that's white, that's what you know. That doesn't mean you're a racist, but that does mean you have to, that there's a whole other side to American history. And certainly the original sin of the founding fathers is now at a crossroads, I think. So what can my going back as Atticus Finch do to help that? And as long as there's systemic racism out there, or the white people who need to come to Jesus on this, then it's relevant. And as I went through the script, I was going through it yesterday, and what Harper wrote, what Aaron wrote, it still resonates. It may be 1934 Macomb, Alabama, but when the judge talks about Boo Radley, oh, we're not going to pin the murder on him. Everybody thinks he's a gang member. Everybody thinks he's a father, stabbed his father with scissors. He's going to end up in a mental facility. And what's that get us? And you look at that going, oh yeah, that's social media. That's cancel culture. They're going to cancel Boo Radley. Got to blame somebody. So I think it's going to resonate even more. The other thing is that I didn't think that we could ever match, whether it's going back to Atticus or some other Broadway play, that I would ever match the electricity I felt nearly every night doing that show. Certainly leading up to opening. It was electric. You were the toast of the town. You were the #1 show on Broadway. You were it for a year. You can't top that. You got the critics, you got the audiences, you got the dignitaries coming backstage to Robert De Niro sitting in my dressing room. That's not going to happen again to that level. So go out with a home run. But now with the pandemic and post everything racially that we've been going through, I'm interested to see what that audience is. They've talked about it's the Roaring 20s all over again, 100 years later. I think we're going to find out.
Yeah, well,
and the audiences could be so ready for this, and so ready, as you were saying earlier, for any kind of live human connection, which I think is what the arts can do when you shut the doors and you go. That I think it could be a great 3 months. So I said yes.
Well, I'm happy that you did do that. As you know, I had occasion to travel to New York and see the show. As you know, my wife and I enjoy Broadway, and I thought it was great. And if you don't mind me telling my audience the happenstance that did not know it, but a woman who taught my children in school English and who taught the book for over 30 years saw the show, and she just happened to be there at the same time. And she raved about it and said it was very true
Lucky us.
Yeah.
They didn't, not all of them did. I remember
No.
the first 2 or 3 previews. It was like walking out for an audience and going, 1, he's not Gregory Peck. And 2, they're all holding the book. That was the first 3 shows. So the fact that she liked what Aaron did with Harper is wonderful.
Yeah, and the other thing that she said was, "Oh, that line they had the judge say, that was one Scout said." So like everything got distributed, and I know there's some thing about the way the program was put on because they couldn't put so much on this character or this kid to do it correctly. That's over my head. All I can say is that I had an expert there that said it's true to the book, who has no public voice or axe to grind, just somebody that has taught it for over 30 years. And so that was
first thing Aaron did was the trial in the book doesn't happen till, I'm going to say, 2/3 of the way through the book.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that Aaron did was we open with the trial. We're in the trial. And then we keep jumping back and forth and back and forth and back. So that just that alone, you could see books just flying up in the audience as they were pitching them, going, "Well, they've ruined it."
Well, what was the hardest thing other than the Iron Man piece? How'd you do on developing that accent? That had to be a bit of a hurdle.
It was. Peck didn't really have one in the movie. Peck kind of did Peck, and as going into it, you're going to, well, what are you going to do differently? It can't just be different. You have to really commit. Yeah, no, let's go for the accent. So I found a guy named Frank Johnson, who was a federal judge in the 60s. He put KKK guys in prison. His court was located, a federal judge in Northwest Alabama. So as a judge, he was putting Klan members in jail. So he was not well liked. And he had an accent that was just hard R's and, registrar and court of law. I mean, that was Frank. And so I went into one of the final workshops. I remember I hadn't really been doing anything. And there were a couple New York cast members that had been around forever. And they assume once you go to Hollywood that you're tainted and poisoned forever, and that the New York actors, the stage people, are the grit of the industry. And there are Hollywood people that come on to Broadway for 3 months, try to win a Tony and leave. They can't do 8 shows a week. They're tired. They're inconsistent. So I could feel that a little bit. And so I was just doing me, kind of walking around with a script for about 3 weeks. And then we sat down to read it through or something, another read through with rewrites. And I just dropped the Alabama accent on them, which was me going, we're all going to be doing accents. Here's mine. I remember a couple of the cast members who looked over and said, it was a challenge. Let's go. We had a dialect coach, Kate Wilson, who came in and she made a great point. She said, Frank Johnson, she said, yes, I've listened to him. He's from the 50s and the 60s, and he grew up with radio. And once you have radio, you now hear accents from all over the world. It's whatever, shows were on at the time, that you're not hearing your Alabama accent anymore. You're hearing something else. So he had changed his accent. We're going to do a 1930s Alabama accent, so softer R's. And so I worked with her a little bit, was able to get on top of it. And she was happy, which was great, because that was one less thing I had to worry about going into opening.
And when we talk about opening, it's just not like, oh, we're going to throw a switch and we're open. There had to be some challenges. Like, how do you figure out, if you don't know when you're going to have opening night, how do you know when to do all the other things you need to do before you put on a production, right? Like, you can't sell a ticket if you don't know what date it's going to be. You can't audition a cast. That had to be a tremendous amount of work and coordination. And I'm going to guess, like anything else behind the scene, there's probably a lot of chaos and missed handoffs and the like.
Oh my God. And it's a big show. It's a musical at the Schubert Theater. It's got, as you know, it's got set pieces coming in. They're hydraulicing in from the side. You walk up on, suddenly you're on the porch, and things can stop. The train can go off the tracks. And over the course of the year, we probably had 4 or 5 of those things. Please stop the show. Actors leave the stage. Actors leave the stage.
Boy.
We'll halt temporarily. They bring the curtain down. Stagehands come in, get the thing back on, and you go out there looking up a lot. Waiting for. So that's just stuff that happens on a big show. We knew opening night a year out. So that gives everybody on the production side and the actors the time to get ready for a December 13th opening, I believe it was. So we had 3 readings and 2 readings and 2 10-day workshops in the winter and spring, and then started rehearsals in Labor Day. Yeah, mid-September, 6 weeks of rehearsals. And we're still finding our legs. And then we go into tech, which is 10 days of stop, fix a light, fix a sound cue, back up, stop. The actors lose it for 10 days. You're just chess pieces on a board being moved around to make sure the lighting is right, and other things. And it's essential. And then you get a couple runs at it. And then you start previews, which were November 1st before the December 13th. We did 45 previews before that opening night. And that's a lot. And that includes, they're like double headers every day, because if you're doing a show at night, you're also rehearsing in the afternoon because there are rewrites.
Is there a date set for the reopening?
For the reopening, our first show is October 5th. That's all I know.
Got a lot
as far as I'm concerned, especially with the internet, that's opening night.
How is New York? I have not been there since the pandemic, and
I hear it's busting at the seams. I hear it's just, people are just out. They're just out. I mean, it's the people that I know that are living there are just going, wow, it's exciting, it's great, and the tourists aren't even here yet, which some of the diehard New Yorkers enjoy.
Yeah, well, look, New York. I always loved Midtown and always loved Broadway and the bustle, and it's like, I did a little bit of work on Wall Street and such, and it literally is a city you don't have to sleep in if you don't want to, and that there's been a lot of publicity about it that just hasn't been good. But I'm one that's very skeptical of the news reporting services, because they have their thing they want to tell you about, versus what's really happening on the ground. And, you couldn't have a Broadway reopening, even with a handful of shows, if people couldn't get safely into their hotels and restaurants and whatever else they're doing during the day while they're waiting to see the show. So you would think. But you haven't been back there yet for a while?
No, but all indications are roaring 20s.
That's great. Jeff, a topic very near to your heart and has become very near to my heart is the Purple Rose Theater. And for those people that don't know what the Purple Rose Theater is, Jeff founded this off-Broadway quality professional theater in his hometown of Chelsea, Michigan. It enjoys a tremendous reputation as an artistic venue. 168 seats, 3 sides around. And if you listen to Jeff talk about the way that the audience, you step out of reality for the time of that show. I've experienced that many times at the theater. And the regional theaters don't have the infrastructure and they don't have the economic backing that the big professional theaters do. Yet, like everybody, they got shut down and shut down hard for the pandemic. How are things looking over at the Rose right now?
we're okay. We're going to survive it. We held on to people for as long as we could, longer than most. And now we're down to 4 people that we felt were essential to reboot. And we had done well with fundraising and with box office. I had done some live stream concerts that raised a lot of money that allowed us to hang on to those people, so that when we do open the doors again, and we are starting to rehire now, um, what we had before will continue. Um, and these people are key to that. We're gonna downsize a little bit. I think one of the things that the theater needs to do is, I want it to exist when I'm not here anymore, and that the 4 people who are in there now aren't here anymore either. It has to sustain itself for the community, for the greater good of the southeastern corner of Michigan. It's a destination now, and it's the arts at a professional level. So we have the protocols, we have the policies, we have the how to do what we do's all there, ready to go, being passed on to another group. And now we're going to put that group together. We're going to diversify. We've got a whole diversity program now that really is, we're finding and developing and reading and getting ready to produce playwrights of color. And it's time. We want to lead the way in that.
Well,
And
well, to be fair, you haven't been shy, or the Purple Rose Theater has not been shy about taking on some of the most sensitive issues of the day.
no,
Um,
I feel proud about
yeah,
what we've done. Our door has been open for 30 years.
yeah, and
I was
Flint,
raised that way. My dad introduced me to a guy named Herb Pearson in town. I was 9 years old, maybe. I walked into my house and there's an African-American man sitting at our kitchen table with my dad. And my dad said, "Jeff, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, Herbie Pearson. He and his family just moved to town." And that was all I needed to hear. My dad took him around town and introduced him to all his white friends as his friend, my friend Herbie Pearson. I think he helped him get a job. That was my dad. My dad was Atticus. So that's been ingrained in me. But, we opened the Purple Rose. We're in a predominantly white small town, and we're encouraging, but we didn't reach out. So post George Floyd, got it. We're going to reach out. We're going to grab you. You think you can write? Great. Let's get all the African-American playwrights, Hispanic playwrights, transgender play. I don't care. You want to write? Let's put you in the program. We got a year of this pandemic. Let's start to work on that. Let's develop actors. Doors wide open, folks. And they're coming, which is great. We're going to be a better theater because of it. And the audiences will be, better for it. And it's time. It's time.
oh well, if my statistics are correct, I think 5% of the writers in Hollywood are black and 4% are women. So they're
Give them 6 months, Rich.
yeah. All right, well,
No, really. I mean, you can see it coming. All you got to look as television commercials.
right, but my point is that
Every ethnicity, every color, it's all there. And I think it's culture gets ahead of politics sometimes. And Ron Brownstein wrote a book called Rock Me on the Water. And in it, he makes the case for coming out of the 60s, the culture was ahead of Nixon and all of that, and it became more open and all of that. That's his theory. And I think it's coming. I think there's a new America coming, and the arts should lead the way. And it's not going to be the way it was. It just isn't.
well, look, to your point, I think people are fed up and disgusted and frustrated, which is one of the reasons I started doing this show. They're not getting the answer from the Democrats. They're not getting the answer from the Republicans. People look at news reporting and they expect that they're being lied to or misled. And we've had people on the show that have explained that business model of picking your audience and then continually outraging them in order to draw eyeballs and clicks and advertising. And as long as I've been doing this show, people say, well, what's it about? And I said, oh, it's fiercely nonpartisan, policy oriented discussion. And we actually read legislation. They go, oh, wow, we need that. I haven't had anybody go, hey, why would I need that if I have, and I'm not going to name any of them, fill in the name of your favorite villain from the wherever you are happen to be on the spectrum. But I share your optimism that we can get to a better day. And as you know, I'm working with some people that have done a couple of movies and that have some things in the pipeline right now just to get human stories out that really cross all lines, and frankly lines that shouldn't be there. And I'm so glad you mentioned your father's influence on you, because we are recording this today on Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to you. And um, that, what today, Jeff, could you say is the best role that you've ever had, in the world or on stage or film or any place?
Oh, the most important one, of course, is the family, and to the degree that the father makes an impact on that family unit is the most important thing to me. It always has. That's why I moved back to Michigan instead of moving to LA in the 80s. I just moved home. I wanted to raise a family there and have my family there, and to see my kids grow up. And now they're in their 30s, and there are 3 grandkids, which is nice. One of the great things about being a grandparent is that you no longer have to listen to other grandparents tell you how great grandparenting is. And it's everything they say. What I'm not there all the time. I'm working, I'm gone, I'm going to go to Mockingbird. So I'm not going to be around the grandkids, like grandpa in the chair waiting for him to come over and pull his finger. I'm not around as much. But I'll tell you what's a joy that I never saw coming was watching my, in this case, 2 boys presently become fathers, become young parents, to care for their daughters or their son, to talk to them in a way that, oh my God, I remember that. And it's the cycle of life, and just to be present and around to see that is glorious. It really is.
Jeff, I share that in watching my son and daughters become parents, and and I look at that, I go, did we do that? We must have. This makes me tired. Um, but I had the best job I've ever had, is being the grandfather, and also I can wear a hat now. I wear a hat, mostly for sun protection because I just don't have enough hair anymore. But um, it's the best job I've ever had. Um, Jeff, we kind of touch a little bit on government and federal, state, municipal, any support or things that would make life easier or more difficult for the arts. Like, I don't know if in your time or with your, professional peers, have you ever walked into someone and go, really? We can't do that, or really we have to do that, or hey, wow, this is great. Look at this kind of support we're getting. Um, is that integrated at all with any of the policy decisions that get made? Something we talk about on Common Bridge, and I'm not aware of any. I just wondered if you were.
You mean if we do this, we'll raise more money?
No, if for example, that there was a regulation on, if you're going to put a theater here, you've got to put in more parking, or um, you're going to be subject to, certain law, or are there, support to the arts? I know we have the National Endowment for the Arts, and various, state groups help support it. And I think people would agree that that's a necessary thing, because patrons and box office sales won't cover, and it takes the everyone at large to be able to contribute to the support. Otherwise, people are going to get shut out. And art can't be this thing that embraces the whole society if everyone can't get in. So, if you were going to advise the governor of the state of Michigan or the president of the United States or a mayor of a municipality, what would you tell them you're looking for in terms of support of any of the performing arts?
Well, it's hard to change people's minds if they only want to watch American Idol and um, the Keep Up with the Kardashians. I can't help you. But if we were just going to go for profit, then we would run the most popular play we could every time and run it for as long as we could. Because then it's just about the money. It's about getting everybody paid and making money. And that's what it's about. Look at us. We made a profit. We're a success. And what the not-for-profit theater does, or even places like the Arc in Ann Arbor, not-for-profit music venue, it's a little bit like Netflix, Hulu, and Show and HBO and all those things. They don't have to have a great opening weekend as a movie. They can do something like Godless, which is a Western, which no movie studio would do now because Westerns don't sell. They don't make a big profit anymore. So they've stopped doing them. But a Netflix can do Godless, and they know that people who like Westerns will pick that. And there's a niche. And
Exactly
I think
what that was. You were great in that. What exactly was the body count in Godless?
personally, I was in double digits. I know that. Sometimes in one scene. But the not-for-profit, it allows us to take chances. It allows us to push you. It allows us to challenge you. It allows us to tell you a story that you haven't heard before or seen somewhere else. You're just seeing it again. Reruns. We're not doing reruns. We want you to sit down and know nothing about this, and lights go down and off we go together. And we want to take you someplace that you think you know, but you're going to know even better when you're done having seen it. I mean, Flint, the play I wrote, Flint,
Fantastic.
was, and we didn't say anything because, the water was a problem and Schneider was in trouble and everybody was screaming and yelling and a lot of people were dying. And movie star is going to write a play about Flint. Oh God, here he's going to go after Schneider. I mentioned him once just in passing, just as a reference, and nothing to do with anything that he may or may not have had to do with that. The play was about systemic racism. And it was written after Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, Missouri, after Trayvon Martin, after Dylan Roof.
And
it wasn't going to be, Hollywood liberal takes a run at Snyder about the water. The water was a metaphor for a city that had been forgotten when the car companies moved out, and this is what is left. And I had read Carol Anderson's White Rage versus Black Advancement, among other books. And it was, I was speaking to it before people were speaking to it after George Floyd. And I remember the first couple previews, people came down not knowing, and a lot of people from Flint came down that first weekend. And a couple said, we're like Escanaba, we thought you were gonna make fun of us. And they were rocked. We had talkbacks. We had a middle-aged auto worker who had been, forgotten and dumped. And he started doing the talkback and commenting about, he said, that's, and he just started crying. We hit a nerve with that. But because we're not profit, we can run that thing for 6 weeks. We can take a chance that maybe some people aren't going to like it. And some people sure as hell didn't, but we don't care. That's what we do. And if you were to sit there for the 90 minutes it took, you might have come out a little different, maybe just angrier. but certainly a lot of people came out and started to look at that situation a little bit differently, which is all you ever want.
Jeff, I think you've said it there. And in fact, my brand promise for the Common Bridge is that everybody should find something to not like in every episode, because it's real easy in these times to go get affirmation, to take your preset conceptions, your outrage buttons, and go get them fed. And people know exactly where to go. If you've got this persuasion or that persuasion, that's the business.
Sorkin was talking about that in a newsroom. We were mentioning that in newsroom quite a bit before it was popular, and sure enough, here we are.
Yeah, and what I was going to compliment on Flint, the humanization of all the characters and that arc from this, really unique period in history when United States automakers had 75% of worldwide market supply, and the car was king, and General Motors was the largest employer, and from that peak, the devastation to everybody, then how things splintered. And I thought the way you guys picked it up in Willow Run, now that wasn't one you wrote. David McGregor wrote that?
No, I forget who wrote it, but it was a great show.
It was a
about
great
Rosie
show.
the Riveters and Willow Run and all that. Yeah.
And the other thing so when you come to the Purple Rose, I will tell you that you will hear about redemption and hope, that that real things happen to real people. And when we began this talk today with Jeff, we talked about the soul being ripped out of our society because we didn't have the performing arts. Jeff tried valiantly with streaming his singing. That had to be a weird experience without having an audience in front of you.
It's like shooting a movie. It really wasn't that big a reach.
No, okay. But you couldn't hear anybody laughing, or not laughing.
No, but it became more intimate. We did 77 live streams over the 9 months. And tonight you're playing Sheboygan, tomorrow you're playing Topeka, and then Thursday night you're in Alaska. I mean, it's just the routing you could never do if you were in a car trying to get there, or a plane. So I enjoyed it. It was like a medium close-up in a movie. You get to pull them in, and whether you're on the Schubert stage on Broadway or even the Purple Rose with 150 seats, the performance is still to some degree going to them. The trick is to get them to pull them into you, which the Purple Rose, we work on that. That's our kind of approach, but also it's film acting. You don't go to the camera. You try to pull them into you, and that's just the little trick of filmmaking. So to put a guitar in my hand and look at a camera here, and then here's another one there, I'm playing to one person who's really interested. That's the trick. And I tended to enjoy it because there was no travel. I could walk over to the recording studio. I did it with my two boys, and I enjoyed it. I hope I get to do that more. I hope that doesn't go away. It's too convenient.
Yeah, well, look, there's parts of the world, like we're talking right now, going to be able to put this up on our YouTube channel. There's going to be, more meetings that are done, absent travel. As you know, that was something I was in the very early stages of about remote working. But it can get off the rails, and I'm not, just talking about Jeffrey Toobin and those types of things. That there is that need to see people in 3D. The beginning of the mental health crisis we're just beginning to see. I wonder about child development when the only faces they could see smiling at them were in their own homes. And I think it's going to be a long time before we unwrap all of this. And I hope that those people like you who think about this and write songs about it and write scripts about it and try to reach into our humanness for all this thing that we've experienced. and try to boil that down into 90 minutes or 2 hours is a formidable challenge. Jeff, this has been a great conversation, and I do appreciate you being here. Is there anything that we should have covered today, or any closing thoughts that perhaps we haven't yet?
No, we done did it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being on. This is Rich Helppie, your host of The Common Bridge, with actor, playwright, singer, songwriter, Jeff Daniels. He's a star of stage and screen and television. Great career. Hope that those of you that have the means and the interest can get to New York to see To Kill the Mockingbird. And please register for our podcast and YouTube on richardhelppie.com or on your favorite podcast channel. Please rate us. Rate us high if you would, please. This is Rich Helppie with our special guest today, Jeff Daniels, signing off on The Common Bridge.
Thank you for watching Richard Helppie's Common Bridge. Please click the subscribe button below. Also, tune into our podcast, Richard Helppie's Common Bridge, on Apple, iHeart, Amazon, and others. Also, be sure to visit us online at richardhelppie.com.